your chair for the very last time of the Measure X Oversight Committee. And again, thank you all for spending your afternoon here together, doing this incredibly important work of monitoring and managing the taxes that we agreed to assign ourselves in order to invest in the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure throughout all the nooks and crannies of this big, incredibly diverse county. So thank you again for your service. We'll start with our roll call, and Maria will call your name and let her know if you are here.
Okay, League of Women Voters, Janet Brennan.
Here.
Alternate, Howard Fosler.
Here.
Salinas Valley Taxpayers Association, Kevin Dayton. Alternate, Rick Giffen. Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association, Tom Raleigh.
Here.
Alternate, Rick Hewer.
Here.
Senior or Disabled Services Agency, Kayla Bumba. Alternate, Teresa Sullivan.
Here.
Bicycling Advocate, Victoria Beach.
Here.
Transit Users, Jesus Valenzuela. Alternate, Andrea Monzo. Labor Organization, Rod Smalley.
Hello, young lady.
Alternate, Glenn Scheller. Central Coast Builders Exchange, Cliff Fastnatch. Alternate, Christine Odell. Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce, John Hoopt. Alternate, John Bailey. Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, Jonathan Geisler. Alternate, Monica Lau.
Here.
Habitat Preservation, Scott Waltz.
Here.
Alternate, Rachel Saunders. Hospitality, Barbara Meister.
Here.
Agriculture, Norm Grew.
Here.
Alternate, Paul Arenado.
Here.
Education, Brent McFadden. Alternate, Darren Fort. South County Representative, Paula Getzelman.
Here.
Alternate, Carol Kenyon.
Here.
Latino Organization, Chris Barrera. North County Representative, Steve Snodgrass.
Here.
Pedestrian Representative, Robin Lee. Alternate, Lori Ivy. Youth College Representative, Natalie Olivas.
Here.
Alternate, Gabriela Ulloa. Construction Representative, Sean Hebert. Alternate, Keith Severson.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay,
And Keith is
Chair.
here as well. Good afternoon.
perfect. Thanks, Chair. We have a quorum.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So we have a pretty straightforward agenda today. Nominations for several important committees and role of chair and vice chair today. And then we'll also receive a report on how the on the current Measure X revenue, how that's shaping up and plans going forward. Let me begin the meeting by asking for public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the Measure X Oversight Committee about a topic or issue that is not on our agenda today? And if you would just raise a digital hand or a physical hand. Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment on something that is not on our agenda today? Okay, I see no one. Then we'll move on to our next item, and that is our consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda or ask if anyone would like to pull an item off the consent agenda to be discussed at the end of the meeting.
I
Erratic
move approval
correction.
of the consent agenda.
Erratic correction.
Okay, hold on. We have a correction, Tom.
Yeah, the date for the minutes that we approved at the last meeting, I believe, was supposed to be April, not February. It was April 19th. Just erratic correction.
Okay, Teresa, are you picking up on?
Yeah, I heard that. Let me double check because it should have been August, I believe, was our last meeting. So I'll double check it.
Oh, this is from the meeting minutes from August, reflecting we approved the minutes
April.
from the April meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
I'll second the motion for approval as amended.
Sorry, I didn't even get to the first. Who was the person who moved to accept the consent agenda? Was that you, Victoria?
I made the motion, Janet. Brennan.
Janet made the motion. All right. Sorry, Victoria, your hand is raised because?
Yeah, just because it's a little pertinent to what we discussed on the minutes. And I know you want to make announcements at the end, but I might not be here. So do you mind if I just make one brief comment about the minutes? Or
Yeah.
you can tell me another place to do it.
Well, first, let me get my motion down. It's been moved by Janet, seconded by Tom to approve the minutes. I will then open this for discussion from you.
Okay, that's good enough. It's just a quick note that I just received a alert from our local wastewater district that is relevant to the safe routes to school that we discussed last time. They are thinking about, and some of you may know this, but I wanted to make sure TAMC knew it and this board knew it, that they are thinking about opening up the bridge that goes across the Carmel River, the pedestrian bridge, which will then connect back to the free Carmel River project by the Big Sur Land Trust. And it's, to me, very exciting news. It could just work in synthesis with other TAMC mobility projects, including Measure X related things. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about that. It's relevant to last time's discussion, and I didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Critique of myself, though, that's probably an announcement about new information that wasn't something we discussed in the past. The approval of minutes is to make sure we've recorded our past discussion accurately. So next time, let's hold those announcements off for later. And
I
or
just might not be here. That's all. Thanks.
okay, well, if we
for the
run this meeting
exception.
efficiently, we'll give you ample time to do so. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to accept the corrected minutes. And I think it's moved. Is that just, I requested an agenda consideration for the consent agenda. Been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda, both the minutes as well as the April or the 2023 meeting dates. Is any further consideration? If not, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, either raise a digital hand or a real hand. All right, anyone opposed? Then our consent agenda is approved. Thank you. And thanks.
And Madam Chair, I abstained because I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Maria, please note that Steve Snodgrass abstains. All right, then let's move on with the more exciting business of the meeting. If I can get my screen to operate here. There we go. So the work for us, the next three items are nominations. And I would like to make a call for nominations to nominate a chair and a vice chair of the Measure X Citizens Oversight Committee for a 2-year term starting in January 2023. So I have been serving as the chair for the last 2 years. Paula Getzelman has been serving as the vice chair for the last 2 years. And so we are opening the floor to nominations for both chair and vice chair. So let's take each of those separately though, right? So we would like to ask first for nomination to be the chair for the Measure X Oversight the next 2 years.
Is that for me?
There are a number of people that have their hands raised, so why don't
All
we
right.
just go one by one? Janet, you didn't want to start?
Yeah, I nominate Norm Groot for chair.
Okay, Janice nominated Norm Groot, Keith, and then Rod.
I don't have a nomination. I just wanted to say thank you, Barbara, for a job well done. And it would be a shame to just let you go with one term, but if that's what you want. Anyway, thank you very much for your service.
You're welcome. And don't worry, there'll be more years for all of us to probably get a second round here. Rod,
Barbara, would you like to do it again?
no, I would not.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, any other nominations? Welcome, Kevin. We are in nominations for chair to replace me for the next 2 years, starting.
All
January
right, thank
1.
you, Barbara. Sorry about being late, everyone.
Any nominations from you, Kevin?
No, I have not thought about that.
Okay, we've one nomination for chair for Norm Groot. Norm, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair or Committee Member Brennan. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
All right, well then let us proceed to a vote to accept the nomination of Norm Groot to serve as chair of the Measure X Oversight Committee starting January 2023 for a 2-year term. All those in favor either raise a digital hand or a real one. We have majority hands up. Thank you. Anyone opposed to Norm Groot being our next fearless leader? No one opposed. All right, it has been moved or voted affirmatively, unanimously that Norm Groot will be the next chair of the Measure X Oversight Committee. Thank you, Norm.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the vote of confidence.
All right, thank you. Then our next item is to nominate and elect a vice chair. Again, Paula Gepselman has been serving in that capacity for the last 2 years. And before that, she served as chair. So Paula, you raised your hand. Do you want to, I'll open the floor for nominations. Paula?
I would, thank you very much. I'd like to nominate Sean Hibbert for vice chair for the next 2-year period.
Okay, thanks, Paula. Janet?
No comment. I was trying to lower my hand.
Okay,
There we go.
all right. So Paula's nominated Sean. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, seeing none. Sean, do you accept this nomination? Are you willing to be vice chair?
I do. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
All right, then, thank you, Sean. With that, then I want to entertain a vote to approve the nomination of Sean Hibbert as the vice chair for the Measure X Oversight Committee. All those in favor, raise your hand, digitally or real. All right, Kevin, do you want to vote? Thank you. All right, anyone opposed to Sean as vice chair? All right, it's been approved unanimously for Sean Hibbert to serve as our vice chair. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, starting January 2023. Then we need two more committees that we need to nominate folks for. The first, I want to call for nominations for the election of members to serve on the Measure X Audit Subcommittee, the Audit Subcommittee. As you know, this is the major responsibility of this committee, is to review the expenditures and conduct, well, the Oversight Committee is responsible for conducting the independent audit and communicating that out to the public, to our constituencies who voted in support of this tax. And you'll recall that every year around the first of the year, we receive and work with Mike Zeller to receive all of the reporting. He analyzes it. He reports to us on how each jurisdiction is doing with spending its funds. And then we then communicate that to the public in that report. You remember the table that we've compiled over time? And it's been a very important process and one that really articulates the integrity of this work and the integrity of this tax and program. So with that, I'd like to ask for nominations. In the past, it's been it's been about 3 to 5 members. In the past, it's been Kevin, Paula, myself, Natalie, and Victoria, and not here. I believe it was Rob as well. And so some of us have had experience doing this, and I welcome others to have this experience if you haven't already. So with that, I want to take nominations for the subcommittee, the audit subcommittee for Measure X.
And may I just add a comment?
Yeah.
What the chair and the vice chair serves on that committee as well. So it would be those 2 positions and then additional committee members.
Thank you for clarifying.
And in this case, it might be a good idea, as you as will be former chair, and maybe Paula, if one of you were involved in that process, I think it might be helpful just in terms of your experience and your leadership to be able to then help the group move forward.
Good idea, Teresa. All right, so Norm and Sean will already be serving on this subcommittee as chair and vice chair. And Keith, do you have a nomination?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Steve Snodgrass. He worked for a long time at Granite Rock as a CFO and sat through many audits. And I think he's really well qualified for that. And he's retired, so he's got all the time in the world.
And perhaps, can I tag on to this? And maybe if we can just step back a minute and say hello officially to Steve and to welcome him. I was going to use that later as the announcement, but Steve, we certainly appreciate your being here. He was nominated by Supervisor Phillips to represent North County. And as you just heard, he has a wealth of experience that I think will be helpful to this committee. So welcome, Steve, and thank you.
Thanks. Very glad to be here.
Perfect. And Steve, would you accept that nomination?
Yes, I would.
All right, thank you. All right, Norm, additional nominations.
I just wanted to say, you know, with 3 new members now coming onto this committee, it would be good to have at least one member of the previous committee for consistency's sake. So if any of those prior committee members would like to volunteer for another term, we would sure appreciate that and provide that consistency as we go forward. Thank you.
Okay, any nominations there, Norm?
I do not have anything specific, no, but if you'd like to join us, Barbara, I'm certainly willing to nominate you.
I want to ask Kevin or Paula if they feel motivated to serve on the audit subcommittee again.
Barbara, I'm always thinking about making sure we have a diverse group, so I will hold back unless no one else wants to do it.
Okay.
And I feel that way as well.
Victoria, you were the other, and Natalie, you two were on the audit subcommittee for the first time last year. Would you accept a nomination to the audit subcommittee, Victoria? And then I want to ask the same question of Natalie.
Well, I just unfortunately got placed on a bunch of boards in Carmel that are very urgent about housing, and I feel like I better not spread myself terribly thin on that one, but thank you for considering me.
Okay. Natalie, do you want to join us for a second year on audit committee?
Yeah, I would accept the nomination.
Thank you. Well, if you're going to accept, then I'll accept too, as somebody representing the old timers here out of the Paula Kevin club. I'll serve as one more year and help you out too, Norm.
Great. Thank you very much, both of you, Barbara and Natalie. Appreciate it.
Okay, so nominations for the audit subcommittee, Steve Snodgrass, Natalie Oliva, and Barbara Meister. I would entertain a vote. All those in favor of this nominating these 3 members to the subcommittee? All hands raised. Okay, anyone opposed? All right, Rick, are you opposed? No, just slow on the down hand. All right. Okay, thank you. Well, then members of the audit subcommittee, in addition to Chair Norm Groot, Vice Chair Sean Hebard, and Steve Snodgrass, Natalie Oliveth, and Barbara Meister will be the Measure X audit subcommittee. And be ready to meet Mike at the end of December or early January? Remind us of the timing of our work.
I believe in the consent agenda item with the schedule of meetings, the subcommittee meetings are included in there. We typically meet around mid-January for the first meeting to go through the audit results.
That's right. You receive all the things at the end of the December
Correct.
year from each jurisdiction. Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
just a slight correction, I'm not sure if they actually got attached to the agenda, but I'll send out an email to all of the members with the calendar dates.
Please, yeah, I was thinking maybe I didn't read my report accurately. So good. We'll watch for those dates, Teresa.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, moving on in our agenda, we have one more important committee where we need members to serve, and that is the Senior and Disabled Transportation Program Grant Review Committee. And you remember our last meeting, we reviewed the grant guidelines and gave our recommendation, which then were approved by the TAMC board. So the work of this committee, and this will be the third round of grants for the transportation program. And this work of this committee will be to review the applications and conduct site visits of the applicants. And this grant review committee includes one person from the Measure X committee. And on that, they would join one member from MST, Mobility Advisory Committee, and one member of the TMC staff. So I'd like to entertain nominations for one member to serve on the Senior and Disabled Transportation Program Grant Review Committee.
Chair, before you do, can I just interrupt? Aaron, if you can weigh in here. Aaron is for the staff. He oversees the program. But in the past, we have had more than one representative from this group. I believe we've had up to 3. So I don't believe, Aaron, that there's a limitation that says it has to be one. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. No limitation, but at least one member.
At least one. And so this committee had talked about the possibility of Caleb Bamba being that representative, but as you can see, Kayla is not here and she hasn't been for a bit. So what we're looking for is other folks who may want to have an interest in serving on this committee.
Thank you for that clarification. Paula?
I'd like to say I'd like to talk just for a minute about this particular committee. I served on it for 1 year and I found it incredibly helpful and something that was of great value. I think we don't quite understand what issues the seniors and the disabled have in this community. And through serving on the committee, there was a lot of good discussion. There were a lot of things that came out that I think are very important for this group to know about. So I really encourage people to volunteer or nominate someone who hasn't done it before, so they too have the experience and the benefit of serving on this committee.
Perhaps we can ask Aaron to give an overview of what's involved, like how much time commitment are we talking about, Aaron, and the time frame?
Yes, so the time frame will be the grant review committee will get together in early December to review applications. And then if needed, since it's nearing the holiday season, we could continue the review into January. And that would just involve having to conduct the site visits to the applicants of the program. One thing that I did want to point out, the only eligibility requirement is that your organization is currently not receiving Measure X funds, or your organization it does not plan to apply for the cycle 3. So if your organization is not involved in that, then you could be a part of the committee.
And Aaron, can you give them a sense of how many applicants in the past have applied? So they have a sense of what the workload might be.
Mm-hmm. The max applications we received was in cycle 2, and we received 5. It'll be likely that we'll receive about 4 or 5 again this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Aaron about the responsibilities for the committee? Okay. Well then, taking up Paula's point here, who would like to serve on the committee? And if you haven't had this experience before, as she said, it's very insightful to think about the importance of transportation resources for the elderly and those who are less able to drive themselves. I'd like to entertain nominations to or volunteers to serve on this committee. Paula?
Well, I'll start the ball rolling. I'll volunteer and hope that several others.
Teresa? Oops. Teresa's trying to talk. All right, so Paula has volunteered herself. Thank you, Paula. Is there anyone else who would like to join her? Or Paula, is there anybody else you want to recruit?
Well, I'd like to recruit anybody who is willing to participate because I think it's an extremely valuable and interesting experience and one that requires people with foresight and the ability to make some hard decisions that sometimes have to be made, but are very important. So I know we have a lot of talented people and a lot of good people on this committee, and I hope that others will join me as well.
Tom, may I ask you to speak? You've served on this committee before. What is your experience on that?
Teresa, I'm not sure that was audible. Who are you calling on?
I was talking to Tom. Can you hear me? And was it clear?
We can.
I was asking Tom because he served on this committee in the past. If you could share what your experience was like.
Yeah, right now it's an excellent committee to serve on. Right now, my mobility is still affected by my right hip replacement, so I'm hesitant to join the committee this year, maybe next year or the next go around at this. But right now, I'm pretty much limited on my mobility, so I'm sorry, I'm not able to serve this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will volunteer to serve. I've been on it before. I know that I think I was in it the first year. Two things I look out for is making sure that the Measure X money is not duplicating what MST Measure Q is doing. And also, it's always important to watch out to make sure that the South Valley is being appropriately served in all this. So keeping those things in mind, I may not be the best person for this, but I can certainly do it if you're looking for someone.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And that makes me, that reminds me too, there are several members of our committee that are not here today. Oh dear, some strange audio is going on here. I'm getting strange feedback. Let's try that. Is that better? Anyway, I was about to say there are several members of our Measure X committee that aren't here today. You know what happens when you don't show up? You can volunteer them, right? Teresa, as you look at the list of folks that are not with us today, do you know if any of them would have a particular interest, and should we try to recruit them in the interim between now and when that committee meets?
No one's name is popping out to me at this point, so I think we're good as is, unless Kayla decides to step up. Perhaps we can reach out to her and see if she would be interested in serving.
Okay.
In the past, we've made sure that the senior representative is on it. I know
Right.
Teresa Sullivan is the alternate, but Teresa may actually have proposals that come in for this committee to review, so she may not. There may be a conflict of interest there.
Right, that is the case, which is why we were thinking that Kayla, so perhaps if I could reach out to her, and she's interested in being reconnected to this group and this committee, this audit committee.
That would be appropriate if you could do that, Teresa. Since
Okay.
she's not here, and that is her role as a senior representative. Very good, thank you. Okay,
Okay.
any other nominations or volunteers to serve on the Mobility and Senior Grants Committee? If not, then I entertain a motion to support the appointment of Kevin Dayton and Paula Getzelman to serve on the Senior Disabled Transportation Grant Review Committee. All
So
those
moved.
so moved. I've just been asking for votes, not even seconds and last. Thank God it's my last meeting. I'm getting rusty here. Anybody, all those in favor of these nominations, Kevin and Paula, raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Raise your hand and you get assigned if you're going to oppose it. Okay, thank you all. Thank you again, Paula and Kevin, for agreeing to serve on this important committee. And we'll see what we'll hopefully Teresa, you have luck in recruiting a third member there. Kayla.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Moving on, our last item on our agenda today is to receive a report, an update on the quarterly Measure X revenue forecast and the status of our regional projects. And wow, if you had a chance to read the report, we are rolling in money. But that's a crude way of saying it. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike to give us a more professional analysis of what's going on with the revenues and the expenditures on our regional projects.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. This is Mike Zeller. I'm the Director of Programming and Project Delivery for the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. Let's see, hopefully you should be able to see my full slides now. So thank you. Just wanting to give the committee an update on Measure X revenues, and then just a quick overview on some of our regional projects that are moving forward. As Barbara mentioned, the Measure X revenues have been coming in quite a bit higher than our initial estimates. When we first set up Measure X, we had estimated that we would be receiving annual revenues of $20 million per year. Every year of Measure X, we have been in excess of that. Last fiscal year, ending June 30th, our revenues were up to 38 million. Which is even higher than our projections that we were expecting. And then looking forward over the next two fiscal years, we're anticipating dropping down a little bit from 38 million, so we will see a decline, but still well in excess of the $20 million baseline for Measure X revenues. The great news for this, obviously, is bringing in more revenues. 60% of the revenues go to the local jurisdictions for their local street and road maintenance needs. So this does give the jurisdictions additional funding that's needed to clear out the backlog of maintenance needs in the county. But what's also great is that the remaining portion, the 40% that goes to our regional projects, we don't necessarily consider this additional revenue. The full Measure X program of projects is $600 million over 30 years. And so until we actually hit that 600 million, we don't really have additional funds. So taking a conservative approach to having these higher revenues just means that we're able to fund our projects as we go without having to look at doing bonding earlier like we thought that we were going to have to. And so we can hold off on those debt service payments, and we can just finance our projects as we go along. So with that, I'd like to just get into running through some of our regional projects, just give an update on some of these. So first up is the Scenic State Route 68 project. This is currently in environmental review, funded primarily the environmental phase with our state transportation improvement program funds, federal highway infrastructure program funds, and then also just recently we added in state local partnership program funds. So we have $50 million in Measure X for this project that we haven't had to use yet. We've been able to use state and federal funds to get us through environmental on this project. And then we do have additional state transportation improvement program funds set aside for the design of this project. So again, we're able to reserve Measure X for future phases, but we will still be required to go out for grants to fully fund the project. As I mentioned, we're in environmental. We're nearing a point where we'll be able to start doing public outreach and hopefully being able to show some of the concepts for the 9 intersection locations that are being targeted through this corridor. And we'll have more information on that as this moves forward. We're coordinating closely with Caltrans on the environmental phase and getting the public outreach set up for the project. Next up is the State Route 156 Castroville Boulevard project. So as a reminder, this is a new roundabout at State Route 156 and Castroville Boulevard to replace the existing signalized interchange, along with 2 additional roundabouts at the off-ramp locations. This project is completing final design and right-of-way. Again, another one that's has a little bit of Measure X, $5 million in regional developer fees, state transportation improvement program funding, as well as $20 million in state trade corridors grant funding. The $20 million trade corridors funding has a deadline of next June for us to get to a point where we're ready for construction. The project does need a coastal development permit, and that was originally approved by the county in June, but then was appealed. So we are, the county, Caltrans, TAMC, and Coastal Commission are all working together on a focused local coastal plan amendment that we believe that we have a pathway, a timeline that we're able to get through that process and get the coastal development permit approval along with the local coastal program amendment approved in time for us to get our construction allocation next June. There is also a PG&E gas line in the project vicinity that would need relocation. So that's also a potential risk that we're working with PG&E to address. TAMC staff has also been working closely with California Transportation Commission, since they're the ones that would approve the $20 million in trade corridors funding, just to apprise them of the status of the project and make sure that we're all working together to make sure that we can deliver this. So tentatively, the current schedule is that we are on track to meet our deadline next June, but still obviously managing and watching those 2 risks very closely. The next one up is the US 101 south of Salinas project. So I have listed on here pre-environmental, but we're actually starting the environmental phase. Caltrans is the lead on that. We have $30 million of Measure X funding for this project, but the environmental phase is completely funded with state transportation improvement program funds. So again, we're able to reserve our Measure X funds for later phases. Again, we will need grant funds in the future to fully fund this project. We are starting our public outreach early on this. We have been obviously coordinating all through the pre-environmental phase on this project. Starting with, I believe last night, Supervisor Lopez had a listening session in Chualar to meet with community and business members, and TAMC staff is planning to circle back to have a transportation-focused conversation with members of that community as well. This project would include a new interchange at Chualar, as well as a new connection at Abbott, and potentially frontage roads as well. A near-term improvement that is moving forward is a acceleration lane that is between Spence Road and Eckhart. So we, TAMC board, approved $1.3 million of Measure X funds to match state highway operations protection program funding. So Caltrans would provide $1.2 million in state funding, and we would provide 1.3 million in Measure X funds for the construction of that project. So it's a near-term project that will be going in while we're still working on the overall final improvements for this corridor. The Marina Salinas Multimodal Corridor, the Imgen Road Widening Project. So this was a City Marina project that would widen Imgen Road to 4 lanes between the existing 4-lane section up to Reservation with 4 roundabouts at key intersections in this corridor. This was the first project to receive state SB Senate Bill 1 grant funds and $19 million of local partnership program funds. And we're able to match that with 18.1 of Measure X, as well as some developer fees and state transportation improvement program funds. The City Marina has been doing a great job working through some issues on getting their permits from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We've been able to push that forward so that they can get what's known as their incidental take permit and get this project ready for construction. This does have a deadline of next April where they need to award their construction contract, and they are on track to meet that. The recent engineer's estimate for the project did come in a little bit higher. So if you'll notice on when the TAMC board agenda for October is released, the meeting's on October 26th, so the agenda will be coming out soon, but you'll see an item on there where staff is recommending an additional $1.4 million that would be coming from state local partnership program funds, as well as a small amount from Measure X to help the city cover that final gap so that they can get the project out to bid and keep them on schedule. This should be going to construction next summer, which is really exciting. Now we have the Fort Ord Regional Trail and Greenway project. This is the Canyon Del Rey segment that runs from Fremont along Canyon Del Rey to underpass at Highway 218 at the Frog Pond Wetland Preserve, then runs up Carlton Drive to Plumas Avenue, and then terminates at Delray Wood Elementary School. So about a 1.5 mile segment of recreational trail through Delray Oaks in Seaside. This is primarily funded with active transportation program grant from the state, $10.3 million. And then we used a small amount, about $2 million of Measure X for both the design and construction, and as well as, again, local partnership program funds on this. So this is fully funded. We are nearing 90% design on this so that we can get the project ready for final design early next spring. And then get it ready to bid out for construction next summer. So this one is moving right along, which is also really exciting. So coming year, we have quite a bit that's coming up. Also, I should go back to mention that on all these projects as they're moving forward, we're continuing to ramp up our public outreach efforts on these. So you'll be seeing us out and about quite a bit, especially as these projects start to move forward. And the last one that I have here for an update on is the Highway 1 surf project. So this is a 6-mile bus rapid transit project between Marina and Sand City and Seaside. This project has significant funding from Measure X, as well as MST's portion of local partnership program funds, as well as they've been able to secure looking for federal funding, as well as state transit and intercity rail funding as well. So this is currently in design. MST is overseeing this project and has been doing some public outreach. And they'll be, I believe, wrapping up design. I'm sorry, they should be at 65% design early next year, January timeframe. So there'll be more information coming out about this project here in the next couple months. So with that was a quick overview of all the projects, and be happy to take any questions or circle back on any ones that anybody would like to talk about specifically.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Let's entertain comments, questions. Victoria first, and then Kevin, and then Norm, and then Tom.
Hi, I think I'm on video, but I can't see myself for some reason.
You are.
Okay.
You look great, by the way.
Oh,
Victoria.
thank you. Wow, that's good to know. So first of all, super exciting presentation. Thank you so much. And I'm constantly thinking about when I was on the TAMC board and how far away we were from projects that not only do maintenance, but actually move the state of the art forward. So it's particularly gratifying to me to see that when we're putting the money into the new projects, that more often than not, they are a step forward in terms of best practices. And I'm referring mostly to the roundabouts. So that's exciting. The other thing, of course, that I sort of mentioned in my earlier comments is the leveraging of the Measure X funds for other funds. And thank you for including that in the presentation. The other leveraging that took place, of course, from one of the projects for the Delray Oaks project is the terminus, or the at least close to the terminus for the elementary school. And that's where I want to circle back to just again, trying to, I don't know, maybe, and it may not be a comment that I need to make, but that I love reassurances that the staff and the committees are aware of these small projects that can be leveraged. So sometimes I know, for example, in the Carmel again, which I brought up before, it may seem like not the highest priority. It's a community that has resources, et cetera, but there's thousands of car trips currently taking place because kids have those interrupted, unsafe, and Todd knows this very well, especially to the middle school. And so here you have a project, like I've mentioned before, coming online potentially through a totally different direction, which is COD. Which if we jumped on it, it may take a smaller amount of investment in order to leverage it into a safe routes to school. So I just wanted to throw that out there as just another example of the type of progressive work that you're doing. And hopefully, if that's not on your radar screen, it will be. And if there are others like it, just to be on the lookout for them. So that's all. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, I also wanted to follow up on that, and Victoria just talked about how we're doing some new projects. And I want people to be aware that these projects some of them are being opposed. What wasn't mentioned here, and that's okay, Mike, that you don't need to mention this, but that Fortag project through Delray Oaks only survived a voter referendum by 12 votes. So the voters there almost killed that. With the Surf Rapid Bus Lane project. There are multiple CEQA lawsuits on that, California Environmental Quality Act. With one of them, it's pretty open that the point of the lawsuit is to kill the project altogether. The state Route 68 in Castroville Boulevard, as was mentioned, there is an activist group that is planning to challenge the coastal permit for that. And I suspect that is to kill off the project altogether, although it's hard to tell what they're doing. And I expect the scenic state Route 68, considering all the opposition I hear about the roundabouts, that there may be resistance to that too. So this committee should keep in mind as they go about to talk about these projects in a positive manner, and always be aware that there are people who really don't want them.
Thanks for that reality check, Kevin. Next up is Norm, and then Tom, and then Scott.
Yeah, thank you. And, I particularly think it's pretty exciting that we're seeing revenue almost double what we were expecting in this last year. So I think that's really indicative of some really smart choices that we've made in the community here, as well as what's happening economically. So two questions, and one of them is more of a statement. Is it safe to say that our revenue stream for Measure X is compatible or comparable to what's happening with the state income at this point? I just read an article this morning that the state in the last 6 to 8 weeks has seen a significant decline in their revenue stream, partly because the inflation really now hitting the economy. I'm just wondering if we can expect the same thing to happen here with Measure X funding.
That's a question, Mike?
Yeah, so the recent, the most recent revenue projections that we have do show a small decline, but that's a decline from the 38 million from last year. So putting us at about 35 to 36 million. We do have another meeting coming up with our with HDL, it's our revenue sales tax revenue projection firm that we work with. So once we have more information after we meet with them, we can bring back a revised estimate if there's any new information.
And just to add to that, I'm not sure which forecast you were looking at or hearing about, Norm, but when people are talking about the state budget, a significant amount of the state budget is capital gains and personal income tax to the state, which is obviously not part of Measure X. So that's the biggest difference when you're talking about the state budget versus locally.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And then, you know, I want to circle back on the Castroville project also. And Kevin's right, there is probably some organized opposition about what's happening with that project. But I'm just wondering, first of all, do we have a contingency plan in place to maybe ask for an extension on the date for the state funds? Just in case, because you know this is a short time frame we're working in, and whether or not we're going to be able to complete all those items that you listed, Mike, it's going to be questionable. And then also with maybe some opposition that's thrown in that may delay the project further. But I guess I'm more questioning, you know, Caltrans is working on the bridge there also right next to that intersection, and just wondering how they get to move forward with their project and seemingly don't have to go through a coastal permit process when essentially they are encroaching on private lands while they're doing this. So just wondering what the difference is between the two and why the reason that the Coastal Commission is suddenly kind of thrown their weight behind the project and issuing the permit. Just wondering if that's something that we should consider.
Todd, I saw you can come off on mute. Did you want to talk about your discussions with CTC staff?
Sure. So we have been talking with California Transportation Commission staff to have some contingency planning in case in case we don't meet a very tight schedule to get through the Coastal Commission permit issue. And so we've basically brainstormed with them, and we're going to be meeting in the future as it progresses. There's the Board of Supervisors, the item was at the Board of Supervisors last Tuesday, and they referred it to the Planning Commission. It is supposed to be scheduled for November 9th, I believe, for the Planning Commission on November 9th. So that at that point, we should hear from Coastal Commission staff whether they have any additional concerns or they support a very focused amendment to the North County Coastal Plan. If we get their support on that, we can meet a schedule to deliver the project and meet the funding deadline. We'll be continuing to work with California Transportation Commission staff for some backup plans. We've talked about a few things, but there's no real easy way to do it. But there are some options that we're going to continue to pursue. So fairly good news that the Coastal Commission staff seem to be working with us right now, but that just still has to be, you know, we have to get farther and that has to continue. Our project versus the bridge project, I'm not sure what they had to do with Coastal Commission. I don't think they had any permanent encroachments. I think they all had temporary construction encroachments. So I'm not sure what they had to do for coastal permitting. Our project is quite a bit bigger than just the bridge maintenance and improvement that's going on.
Where is the bridge project?
It is just on the on 156, right where it crosses the railroad tracks, just on the edge of Castroville community, essentially where it narrows from 2 lanes to 1.
Got it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Norm. Thanks, Todd and Mike. All right. Next up to speak is Tom and then Scott.
Yeah, three items that I had. Well, first is just a general item with all the extra money coming in and the shortfall in the Highway 156 project. I would certainly hope that there will be some consideration at high levels at TAMC to set aside money, somehow pigeonhole that rather than keeping it contingencies as we go along to getting a pot of money to hopefully make up for the shortfall on Highway 156. As far as I know, there still was a 75 million or so shortfall. And it seems to me that with the amount of money, extra money that's coming in, 30 million, it doesn't take long to make up that 75 million. But of course, prices are going up, I realize. 3 items I had was, I live in Fisherman's Flats in Monterey, and the MPUSD voted to close Foothill School, which was a K through 5 school. What has happened is a charter school has essentially taken over and has 175 students. So our traffic inputs, or traffic on my neighborhood, has increased significantly from having 7 classrooms. Also, the County Office of Education has set up running its irregular school programs from the former admin office. And there's a third function there, that the digital classes that are handled by MPUSD are also being managed and run out of Foothill School. What I basically am saying is, and I've talked to PK Diffenbaugh and been through all of that. And anyway, the MPUSD keeps claiming they're losing students, but apparently they're going to the charter schools. So
Point of order, Tom, is this relevant to?
Yes,
my
it is.
report on the
Yes,
Measure X
yes, it
regional
is.
projects?
Because one of the things that is spending big money on is the 4-track problem to run a lane from essentially the Frog Pond to Delray Woods School. Now, I'd like to know, and I have not seen this anywhere in written material published, what assurances we have from MPUSD that they're not going to close or rearrange Delray Woods School. So I'm questioning the mega millions being put up for the 4-track, that lane that's going from essentially the Frog Pond over to Delray Woods School through the Delray Oaks neighborhood and Seaside to get to Delray Woods School. I'm just not confident that MPUSD understands what is happening. We have 7 K through 2 schools, 175 students that are now going to Foothill School that were not there last year, but they closed the school. So there is a need for school, but MPUSD does not have a good handle on it. That's my considered opinion. And we've met with PK. He's tried to reassure us. It's not very reassuring.
Is there
Secondly, on the lawsuit on the Highway 156, is that the Open Monterey project with the usual cast of characters? Who is it that's suing on that project? Some of them are serious. Some of them we think are just nuisance lawsuits. The other thing is, what's the status of the lawsuits on the SURF project? On both of the 2 projects, the Highway 156, I'd like to know more details on who actually is suing to get an idea of whether there's going to be a chance of those getting settled. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Todd?
Sure. So on the 156 Castro Boulevard interchange project, it's not being sued. It's Molly Erickson representing Open Monterey project, who appealed the permit issuance of a coastal development permit. So that forced us to go back to the focused amendment for the coastal plan. But it's not a lawsuit. It was just a very easy thing for her to do, just to file an appeal. On the SURF project, it's again Molly Erickson and representing Keep Forward Wild, and the developer of that resort on the dunes in Sand City are the 2 lawsuits, essentially the same claim. I don't have an exact date, but it's scheduled early next year for its first court hearing. Excuse me. So there's not any real news on that. It's not going to stop the project from proceeding. It's not slowing the project down. It's a nuisance. So, I mean, it could ultimately have some big impacts, but it's not going to slow us down until it goes through the court process.
Great. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Scott?
As many of you know, I'm following the progress of 4TAG very closely because Fred and I tried to launch the idea, and we've been working closely with Tampsy on it. I appreciate both Tom and Kevin providing update and keeping us mindful about how these things unfold. I just want to add that I think that Tansy in a characteristic way is functional and informative, but there's a little more to the story. I have watched Tansy in this project not only use its money well, but actually commit to community investment in the project and a significant amount of community outreach, both because there were concerns, but above and beyond that. For example, recently, Tansy engaged the community to talk about how the necessary features like bike racks and seats could be designed to fit in with the aesthetic of the city. That's not a step they needed to take. They could have just gone ahead and put in something extremely functional. But without spending significant more money, they're engaging the community and making sure that they are serving the people who the project impacts most. So just want to sort of add that element to the story.
Thank you. Thanks for that added perspective, Scott. Yeah. Any other questions or comments for Mike or Todd on expenditures and projects? All right, then. Last item on our agenda is, if I'm remembering correctly, any announcements? Victoria, you're still with us?
I'm here, but I think I nudged my announcement there in the beginning and then in the middle as well. So thank you. Sorry about that.
Just checking to see if there's any more.
Thank you.
Giving you the space here now. Norm, you have an announcement, and then Tom.
Not necessarily an announcement, but since this is Barbara's last meeting as our chair and she served us well for 2 years, I just wanted to thank you for your service and the time commitment that you put into this. It's really been very useful for you as the hospitality representative to guide us through this whole COVID mess. And then now into a period where we are seeing some really great numbers coming in on Measure X funding. So thank you, Barbara, for all your efforts. And I know I'm the one who nominated you to get you into this mess, but I really appreciate you stepping up and doing what you did for us. Appreciate it.
You are also welcome. And yes, handing the reins back, or handing the reins over to you. It all comes full circle, right? So thank you, Norm. I appreciate that. And thank you all for your patience with my leadership here through the screen. Be so glad to get rid of this and see you all in person come our next meeting in the new year. Tom, you had something too?
Yes, please accept, Mike, much appreciation for your report on those various projects. I think overall that was really great news to see that there's movement forward. The usual nitty-gritty lawsuits always seem to pop up, and it seems like one group is behind most of them. Hopefully you're getting the right kind of legal assistance to get rid of those, because we're affecting state funding, SB1 funds, and a whole bunch of it. So it's really great to see that our local funds are being truly, so-called matching funds are really going a long way. When we supported getting the sales tax measure passed, it shows that really we have come out smelling ahead on that. And thanks also again to Barbara for a really great job. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Teresa, Todd, Mike, staff, any other announcements for us?
No announcements other than I just also wanted just to take a moment to thank to Paula, because Paula has served as vice chair these last 2 years, and previous to that was chair. So me personally, as staff, I've worked closely with both of you, and so I wanted to say thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on this community. So the only other announcement is the next meeting will be in February, and I will follow up to the audit subcommittee and make sure that you have the dates for those meetings.
Perfect, good. Yes, and reminder to the 2023 calendar dates are in our consent agenda. Get those on your new 2023 calendar. It'll be here before we know it. And yes, I want to thank Paula too for being my coach too and doing this job, which she did so ably for us as well. So with that, I will call the meeting adjourned, and I'll buy the first round of drinks.
Where are we meeting?
West side of Santa Cruz right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you got to drive up Highway 1 traffic. You don't want to do that.
Enjoy your drink, Barbara.
All right, I will enjoy my drink by myself.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all
Bye.
Bye.